basically, all right, guys, we are now live. Okay. So
are you doing the 2-minute countdown?
We're doing the 2-minute countdown. Well, when you hear the music start,
it is Geek Boy, and we are broadcasting live from the Fanboys 918 studios, strategically secured in the high ground of Posh Jinx, America. And I want to welcome everyone to this, another episode of Geek Speak. And joining me tonight at the table once again is my partner in crime, the king of the keyboard, the Mozart of Microsoft, the IT Geek. Hello, IT Geek. You want to introduce yourself?
I'd love to. Thanks for everyone joining in tonight. We have got a special guest with us tonight. That is Bruce Haley, our conspiracy theory expert. First time we've ever gotten him to get on the camera with us, and all it took was a bottle of Crown to do so. So we're glad to have him here tonight.
Looks like you're running a little low there.
Don't worry, we got more.
We got more. So what we are doing tonight is, our brand is basically fun.
Yes.
That's we didn't start off that way, but that's kind of what we've decided is our brand is fun. Mm-hmm. And but tonight we are going to be commemorating something that is a serious topic, but yet as lovers of cinema, yes, as we are going to be talking about a movie that perfectly examines that period of time in American history.
Before we go too much further, we want to say thanks Jay Pyatt for joining us tonight, the blues man, and Katie Hines.
Katie Hines is here. Hello.
What's up?
What's up?
And
Courtney
awesome.
is joining us.
Courtney.
Instagram.
And Instagram, that's right.
By the way, we are live on Instagram. I believe the Queen is facilitating that tonight, is she not? So
that is correct. We're actually, again, we're doing our Facebook Live, we're doing our Twitch account, and we're actually doing our YouTube channel.
And if you like what we're doing, please like us on all those platforms.
Like us, follow us, send us money in envelopes, dimes, nickel quarters. Exactly. We don't care what.
Or any unopened Obi-Wan Kenobi action figures that you might have.
Skywalker with the missing hand.
That's right. Yeah, we'll take those too.
And everything like that. Or is there anything you're trying to collect right now that you would like to add?
No.
All right. There you go. All that wrapped up in a bottle of just tiger blood here, ready to spring.
So.
Wow.
So November 22nd, 1963, 56 years ago tomorrow, one of the darkest days in American history occurred when a young, popular, charismatic president was struck down by an assassin's bullet in broad daylight.
Now, assassin or assassins?
Well,
we'll get into
that later. An assassin, I put assassin with an apostrophe, but you can put that apostrophe on either side of the S if you want. Now, if the shock of that wasn't bad enough, I mean, collectively stealing the last bastion of America's innocence, the days, weeks, and even years that would follow would bear out that, they would be filled with doubt, contradictions, and outright falsehoods regarding those events in Dallas that day. It would become an open wound in the heart of America that would never fully heal, I believe, forever scarring the American psyche.
All right.
And so with that in mind, those of us at Fanboys 918 thought it might be an appropriate time to revisit what may be Oliver Stone's best cinematic effort. That's 1991's JFK.
Well, I would even almost say Kevin Costner's best performance.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Bruce, when you think of that movie, what's the first thing kind of jumps out at you? It was surrounding that whole moment in history.
Oh gosh, just coming from my angle, that was Innocence Lost.
Oh wow,
absolutely, yeah. I think that perfectly encapsulates it. So it's based, for those that don't know, it is based on Jim Garrison's book On the Trail of the Assassins, and another book, Crossfire: The Plot That Killed Kennedy. That's by Jim Mars. JFK sort of frames its narrative around then New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison, who was played by Kevin Costner, sporting a somewhat sketchy Cajun accent, and his attempt to bring the first and only public prosecution in the Kennedy assassination against someone he suspected to be a conspirator, who was Clay Shaw, who was played by Tommy Lee Jones in full-on creeper mode.
Yep.
Oliver Stone, for those that haven't seen it, first of all, what's the matter with you? If you love cinema, you have to see this film. He's basically constructed a $40 million police procedural to dig into many of the discrepancies, the personas, and the theories that surround the case to this day. So, go ahead.
So Jay, I don't know if you saw it, but Jay says he loves your smile. So you should give me that.
Jay finds what an amazing show it was. Yes, it was. I mean, again, for anyone who, this would not be the kind of movie you would expect us to be reviewing or talking about, but we love cinema.
We do. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you say that. We love the cinema. We love movies. We love, everything about that. And to kind of wrap our love and joy and fun of the cinema world around such a dark moment in our history of the United States, it's kind of
mixed emotions.
It is. It's very mixed, and it's kind of hard to sit here and be jovial and happy to sit here and share our interests and love with cinema with our fans and everything like that, but also talking about this very dark time. So.
But at the same time, JFK is one of my two favorite films. If I had to pick a favorite film, it would not be Star Wars. It would not be Wrath of Khan. It would not be Star Trek. It would be, and depending on the mood I'm in, it would either be JFK or the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I know it doesn't get any weirder than that.
Is it because of the uniforms in the movie?
Could be.
The uniforms probably
don't be starting that. Don't be. So following this lead, those of us at the table tonight, we're not only going to reminisce about the film, but we're going to analyze, we're going to speculate, we're going to pontificate on some of the theories about what really happened that day.
We're going to drink.
And we're going to drink. By the way, what is everyone drinking tonight at the table? Have we already discussed that?
I don't think we have, but I am right now tending my drink to be a little bit of Crown.
Okay. Bruce, what do you got?
This was that mash that he had down.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
I'm drinking your Crown in my Diet Coke.
Very good. So. We still got some Crown left. You still got some Coke left, but we could also switch over to a little bit of Basil Hayden, and then we'll go from there.
All right. So with that being said, I want to kind of kick off the conversation. Start off. Let's work down the table here. First of all, it's kind of a two-part question for you guys, and I'll answer it when you guys get done. When were you first introduced to this film, and how did it affect you when you first saw it?
I'm going to let Bruce go first on that one.
Well, probably since we've been friends since that far back.
Yeah.
I probably when you told me that I needed to go see it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before then, my interest in conspiracy theory type stuff was probably not so strong. Mm-hmm. But this movie, watching it, and then the reading that I did afterwards really solidified my view of the world and how things work in the shadows.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an eye opener, and I think I have to say it's probably given me that jaded look that I have on things. Mm-hmm. I'm very skeptical,
right?
And I'm very suspicious when people say things that they hold out to be truth, but just upon some research and digging, find out it's not.
Right.
That's a good scene.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah, John Candy did a really good job.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So, So, buddy, or IT geek, pardon me.
It's all right.
It's kind of a serious topic, really. So
It
it's
is.
really kind of- with our brand being fun,
I just want to say that I mean absolutely no disrespect, and I mean I have to laugh about it because it is so serious and it is scary in the world we live in because of the things that happened that day. I mean, if you see me laughing, I'm not being disrespectful of the topic or
oh gosh, no,
yeah,
none of
anything
us
like
are.
that. I mean, it just don't take me wrong. I take this very seriously, but
We
that's
do.
just my defense mechanism. Is I laugh. About
Well,
stuff
that
like
and it is a brilliantly made film, so we're going to get
is.
excited and we're going to get animated.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
I agree. That's a great topic. Is that please don't ever think that our enjoyment tonight talking about this movie and the feelings and emotions that it admitted to us is anywhere of taking what happened in our history as lighthearted. So trying to answer your question, I remember. Did we see this in the movie together? I want to say we did.
We may have. I don't remember.
It's been so
I've
long
seen
ago.
this movie so many times. I can't.
I agree. That's what I agree with you in the fact that I've seen it so many times. I can't remember when the first time I saw it, but I remember how excited and just moved by this movie it was. I actually talked to my my mom about it. I believe the first time I saw it.
Really?
And what was funny, she actually had a story about this about her dad, basically my grandfather. He was not a Kennedy supporter. He thought he was the worst president we had. And I know that
A lot of people thought that,
I
though.
know, I agree, and that's why I kind of bring it up is that there was that thought. Well, he was actually in Dallas that day, and my grandfather owned his own construction company, so he had a pretty fancy car at that time and was driving around. And my understanding or my recollection from the story was that he was in what looked like a standard undercover car. And so when the President Kennedy was being rushed to the hospital, the police were trying to wave him in because he thought he was part of the brigade.
Oh my gosh!
To do that, and he's like,
wow.
no, I'm not part of that.
Oh,
and everything.
wow.
So yeah, so I remember very clearly my mom telling me that story. I mean,
Wow.
I don't know, I don't have proof or anything like that, but that is something that's always stuck with me when I hear this movie about how close and how close it struck me to home when I know that I have family that was so close to that. And kind of just thinking about that, it just puts a whole new level of closeness to it for me.
Absolutely. Well, and Jay's got a comment. Oh, Eli is here. Hello,
Hey, Eli.
How you doing? So I want to say Jay's got a comment, but I want to hold that comment till I answer the question because what he says kind of dovetails there. Well, I'm not. You know what? I'll say it first. He goes. Jay Pye says, we all know that your favorite film, you've taken us all to the spot. And he put the spot in all caps where it all happened. Yeah, yes.
In the road.
And he is exactly right. Because I have kind of a funny relationship with JFK because when I sat down to watch it, I think it was in college at the time. And I'd like to think I was a good little student, who'd been told by all my teachers and instructors that Lee Harvey Oswald murdered the president, and then anyone who thought otherwise was just deluding themselves, and these conspiracy theories were just kind of these kooky fringe ramblings, these paranoid black helicopter folks. But so.
Oh, by the way,
yeah.
the studio is clear of all bugs. I swept it.
Did
We're
you?
all good.
Okay, I was gonna say. Did
I mean,
you
the only thing
I'm
we
not
didn't
getting
do.
taken out.
The only thing we didn't do was the cavity searches. So if you're ready, we can.
And we're gonna have to play a clip if we're gonna do that. So.
So Bruce, you're going first.
Yeah, Bruce is going first. We're gonna do that.
Pull a Fletch and sing some Blue Moon.
He'll probably volunteer first. But anyway, but you contrast. So I was very mindful of that, of what I'd been told by all my instructors. But you contrast that with the fact that when this movie came out, Oliver Stone was at the top of his game. I mean, forget the fact that he wrote the screenplay for Scarface. Mm-hmm. Okay, I believe he also wrote the screenplay for Conan the Barbarian, the first one that was really good. I believe he did. Plus, he'd made Wall Street. He'd won the Oscar for Platoon. Yeah. He made Born on the 4th of July. The Doors had just come out.
Wow,
I think. Yeah, I mean, he was
on a train.
Right.
He was on a power train.
When I walked into this movie, I was expecting pretty much all of that, and then throw in Kevin Costner,
right, who was also very at the top of his game.
He was
the Wolves had just won the Oscar.
When it really sunk in what it was I was watching, it just kind of blew me away because did this really happen? Is this really what what happened? Are they just telling us? They're not just telling a story. And that's
Yeah.
what kind of made me want to dig a little deeper in this.
And that's kind of where I'm going. Is that I mean, you had all this back screen or behind the camera talent. Then you had all these Hollywood legends and like people like Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, Joe Pesci, Sissy Spacek,
Kevin Bacon,
Kevin Bacon, Laurie Metcalf, Gary Oldman, by the way, which we'll talk about. His
Ed Asner.
I forgot. Well, we forgot.
Walter
and you had all
Matthau, Donald Sutherland.
Yes, and you had all these.
How could you forget Donald
Oh,
Sutherland? He's like your
I
favorite
hadn't.
character.
I hadn't. So, but you had them all anchored around Kevin Costner.
Yes.
So and so my basic attitude as the movie went dark and the credits rolled was, this is all going to be a bunch of hokum, but I'm sure it's going to be really entertaining. So you can imagine kind of how uncomfortable I started to feel. Probably around Act 3 when a certain specific character played by Donald Sutherland. I'm guessing that's about when it was. I mean, Act 1 of this movie is as tight as it can be, but when Donald Sutherland's character in the brief scene that he's in comes in, I thought to myself, you know what? If 30% of this film is true, as a nation, we are screwed. I mean, and so I guess to summarize it, when the end credits rolled, this film left me scared and angry. I mean, I felt like I had something stolen from me. Maybe just an inkling of what the people who were alive when the assassination.
Well, I agree. I mean, scared and angry. That right there. I mean, think about being alive during that time.
I was going to say, I'm going to interrupt here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Turtle here, speaking from
where were your parents? Because I remember our parents. They were in school. They were in 9th grade. They were younger than that. My mom and dad both told us that they were sitting in class when they came over the 1MC or the
the PA system.
The VA system, and said that John F. Kennedy had been shot.
Right.
I don't know where my parents were.
I
Probably.
was going to say, where were
I don't
your
know.
parents?
Well, we know about Buddy's parents.
My grandfather was down there, but at the I would assume my mom's probably was in school at time as well. She probably she was a Hale graduate, so she would have been probably in class at Hale.
I think my dad was still. My mom and dad were probably in Virginia because my dad was in the Navy.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
In '63. So yeah.
So I'm going to chime in from the Peanut Gallery.
No,
too.
go ahead.
Courtney's with us live on Instagram. By the way, happy birthday, Courtney.
Yes, happy
birthday, Courtney!
Happy birthday!
But I think for her and I, like, she mentioned that she saw it at the Dollar Movie with her parents, and I saw it with my parents. I think we were probably 11 or 12, maybe, when this came out. So.
Did I say I was in college?
Want to take a drink?
Yeah.
But Courtney makes a good comment.
Wait, I should be proud. That's my wife. Yes.
She says it's a reintroduction to all the events to 2 new generations, essentially.
Yes.
By the time we're seeing it, you guys are a little bit older than us. Courtney and I are in, beginning of middle school, and it's just. I would say I know for sure I cried at the movie. I cry every time I watch the movie. But I think it was just. It couldn't possibly be true. It just seemed, how is this possible?
Right.
At 11, 12, however old I was, I was just astonished that this could have actually happened.
Well,
was that what made you so scared when my retirement on the military? You didn't want to handle the weapons and stuff in the army. You're afraid you're going to get pulled into some black op.
They don't need my fingerprints in the military.
Well, it's okay. So Turtle Gal said that about where our parents were. The Queen made a comment. Was not even alive. Well,
Right.
but she made a comment about
seeing it for the first time,
being affected. And I'm going to kick this to Bruce here in just a second because he wanted to comment. I know he specifically wanted to comment about this. But when we talk about this movie, when it first came out, it was the mainstream media was not very kind to it. Even though at the time the movie came out, 75% of the public believed that there was a conspiracy.
Oh yeah.
And I look now.
It's even higher now.
Well, actually, they said if you look at those same numbers, it's dropped to 61%. Which I know.
They haven't seen this movie.
But when you think about it, okay, so that's I'm going to kick this to Bruce. When you think about it, though, think about that time back then when the movie came out, our parents were the last generation alive on this planet to see President Kennedy alive.
Yeah.
And that could be affected. That could affect it. So Bruce, you want to talk about living in a before I hold on. Jay said it's a beautiful movie. Wishes he was here. Had an all-star cast. Beautiful film. And drink. Yes. And so Bruce, you want to talk about take those comments, talk about living in a post 11/22/63
right.
world.
Okay, so you always hear people talking about living in a post 9/11 world, and everyone knows kind of what that means, right?
Right.
Okay. Well,
at least I do.
Despite how I may feel how 9/11 went down, it might be different than the hundreds of millions of people out there. In a post 11/22/63 world, sorry,
It just doesn't roll off the tongue like 9/11.
kicking in. Anyway, that was when. Oh, she's gonna give me some more.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is what we all need.
Babe, Sandy, it's right there.
All of it's up here.
All of it's up here.
That was a huge step back for America.
Yes.
In that everything bad. I mean, that day. Okay, I'm sorry. That day, the bad guys won.
Absolutely, they did.
And because of what they were able to accomplish, everything for the next 3, 4, 5 decades, they've been able to control going into the future. And we have been the victims of that. Everything seems to be centered around the ability to make just a few people powerful and keep everyone else down.
And with Kennedy as the object lesson of, by God, keep yourself in line.
Right.
I mean, at least that's how I've kind of taken it, is
Right.
don't you dare try to disrupt the national security structure.
Right. I mean, and my personal thought is it was the military-industrial complex,
I would
coupled with the CIA at the time. Because, I mean, just from watching the movie and from remembering the history and reading up on the history at the time, he made everybody mad.
He did.
Everybody
Oh, yeah.
had a reason to kill him or get him out of the way.
Right.
So
And we're kind of in the same spot right now.
We are. I do believe
there are
because
some, yeah.
I do believe that. However, I think,
Comparisons,
assuming that you ascribe to the theories of this film.
Now remember, we got to put a caveat here. Yeah. We at the Fanboys 918 have never wanted to enforce or make you think a certain Democratic, Republican, political way. This is only our views. We're not here trying to convince you of anything.
Right. Well, we're an apolitical group.
Exactly.
And that's what I think is brilliant about this film. I don't care what letters after your voter registration. You can watch this film and enjoy it. I mean, it doesn't matter what your core political beliefs are. This is a movie for America.
I agree.
And for every American, and to know the importance of this is still a country of the people, by the people, and for the people, or is it anymore? I mean, not to get that.
Wow,
they like to make us think it is.
I know. I mean, so with that, we talked about. I think that's a great segue into talking about maybe what scenes affected us the most. What were this? I think I know the one that affected me the most. I mean, if you don't mind if I start,
go right ahead.
To me, the meeting with Mr. X. I mean, which by the way, Mr. X was a composite character.
Right.
He was a composite of a guy named L. Fletcher Prouty,
right,
who had a lot of the resume that Mr. X has.
Right.
And then there was another who met with Oliver Stone when he heard he was making the movie. Right. And then there was another character in the book that Garrison met with in Washington that kind of had a lot of the same thing. So it's kind of a composite of two people.
There was a lot of there were a lot of characters that were compiled into one character in the movie, either through the book.
And this movie still got a lot of damn characters.
Oh yeah.
Well, right, but they had to find a real quick, efficient way to tell the story, without really pulling everybody out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would have just got losing. It would have lost a lot of the information he was trying to convey by trying to divide it among the characters. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is when I saw that movie, this was the point where up to this point, I'm like, man, this movie's really entertaining. It's really well put together. I mean, me as a cinephile, I'm like, he's shooting with multiple cameras, with multiple different kinds of film stock. He's got 35 millimeter, 16 millimeter, black and white. I'm doing all this kind of stuff, and how's he editing? And then when Donald Sutherland walks out and goes into his monologue, he's like, forgive my language, fans, this shit just got real.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, this is so.
I
So to me,
wonder
the
how many-
mystery.
That's when you realize the real point of the film.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just
exactly.
curious how many takes that took. I mean, because
Yeah.
Donald Sutherland's delivery is
I
just
know.
so intense.
I
and
heard
it's
they only
like,
had him for one day.
really.
I heard they had
mean,
him for one day.
He nailed it.
Yeah, he
I
did.
mean, the power and the intensity and the passion behind that filming segment. I mean, it's like, wow. I just.
Well, and you got to figure that means they had multiple camera crews already set up.
Oh yeah.
To capture it, because you got him for one day. Boom, boom, boom. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
So, so that was the scene that affected me the most. So I'm going to move on down to the IT geek.
Okay. So
Who's putting the frowny
I
face
actually
up?
went to I actually watched it again last night just to make sure that I was current and everything, and
Right.
it was still the same movie I saw. But anyway,
Well, unfortunately, I don't have to. Star Wars is probably the only movie I've seen more than JFK, and that's because it came out sooner.
I would say after rewatching it again last night, we have Joe
Castro.
Joe
Yeah,
Castro. He's angry.
Yeah, well, and you know what? So he should be. I mean, this is not a happy. This is not a happy topic. So if people want to be angry, they can be angry. It's fine.
The scene that I think probably, I wouldn't say affected me the most, but after watching last night was just kind of a strong scene for me, was the scene where he's making the sandwich in the kitchen and Bobby Kennedy is
That's
assassinated.
killed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, again,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that just kind of sent a shiver through me. It's like, holy crap, here it is. It's happening all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And just to to see him working on the case for JFK, and then here it is just being thrown back up in your face again. It's like they're doing it all over again.
Yeah.
And that to me last night when I rewatched this, it was a very powerful scene for me.
So, a little tie into that. So, I've always been a fan of the Kennedys, and I've read a bunch of books about
Yes.
the different times or all the different things that were going on when he was in office and stuff. And when their mother was told that Bobby had been killed, she said all she said was like, "They're killing Kennedys," and that was it. I mean,
Well, and I think
Teddy had to tell her.
and that's Teddy took himself out.
Teddy.
I mean, when you think about it, I
Did
mean,
anyone ever see the movie Chappaquiddick?
I did not.
I saw it.
Oh, it's good.
It's really
Is it
good.
really good?
Yeah, it was really good. I was like, holy hell.
Mary Jo Kopechne was unavailable for comment. And,
Oh, John.
how good
Ba-dum,
that
boom.
was.
John will be edited out the rest of the evening. Teddy's family's looking for
I
you.
know.
Yeah.
So,
I can't say Teddy because
you can't.
he's not around anymore. But anyway, so Bruce, your comments about the movie. What was
Well, okay, so the courtroom scene
right?
was poignant. The scene where
I have to say we probably have to leave out the courtroom because the courtroom is such a
that's
dramatic.
that's
I
like
mean,
right.
what's your big
especially-
Star Wars when both
When-
the Death Star? You know?
there's a scene early on whenever they're at the restaurant watching on the TV and
Oh yes.
and there's people cheering
Oh,
that
yeah.
he'd been killed, and Kevin Costner just says, "I'm there, today's the day I'm ashamed to be an American."
Yeah.
That was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
And it's funny to hear that, and it's kind of really strange to do the comparison and everything. But there was and again, forgive me, but if you were to say that today, that you were ashamed to be an American, there would be so much ridicule, especially if you were someone as a celebrity. Mm-hmm. All right, so and I know this is stupid. to
Well, but
even
here
bring it up.
lately, the people have been saying it a lot.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And it's become chic to say it almost. It's
Well, it
become
is, but I
so
mean,
way to
if
get
you-
your
yeah.
NFL career jump started.
Well, I mean,
Did I say that out loud?
well, and I disagree with you on the fact that it's not that he's ashamed to be an American in a sense that he's trying to make a statement. And if you've noticed, if you look back at we're really going off topic here. Basically, if you look at old
We gotta-
football games and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that's actually how football players used to play tribute during the ceremony.
Right.
In fact, they would take a knee.
Yeah.
All right.
It wasn't until later that they actually stayed sitting. So, I mean, it's times with change and stuff. And he was trying to make a statement. Yes, blah blah blah. I'm not a supporter of colonoscopy, whatever his name is. But I'm just saying.
Oh my gosh.
Cheers
it's
to
just-
you.
I'm just saying it just. I'm just saying that everybody's got to do what they think is right to bring
Right.
notice to a point in time that is important to them. And if you've got a platform like we do,
Yes.
Sometimes you take that opportunity, but sometimes you should.
All it takes for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah, that's
right.
exactly correct.
And that's correct.
Yeah.
And what's a matter of fact? What's the quote at the beginning of the movie? For those, something by sinning by silence. It's
consent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
consent,
quote by
yeah.
Ella Wheeler Wilcox.
I think we had a comment from
Yes,
Instagram.
we
There was
did,
a chuckle
we did.
from the Queen over
Yes,
here.
yes.
So, would you like to share it?
Yes.
Oh no, you just got a poo emoji from Courtney. I am not defending Colin Kaepernick, but of all the things he could do, taking a knee is less disrespectful than things that other people have done.
Oh yeah.
But she also said, "What if this happened today?" Kind of.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Oh no.
Why-
So, I mean,
We don't necessarily want to get into today's politics,
Right.
but
But no, I think it's a valid question because I think
if it happened to today's president or the president that was 4 years ago,
Either
or
one.
the last term, I mean,
Right,
either one,
right.
I think we would
I
have.
think you would have more. Like back then, a lot of people were more civil, more
back
proper.
then, meaning
back in the '60s.
Okay,
whenever-
yes,
okay.
okay.
So
Right.
it was in bad taste to celebrate the death of somebody, especially if it was your president. Right?
correct. Right.
Okay. Nowadays, I think people are just so coarse and just so
They are.
rub raw. Had the previous president been killed, there would have been
Oh, there would have
a
been
lot of
been
people
celebrations.
who were
That's right.
celebrating.
That's right.
Oh,
The
yeah.
president now is assassinated.
Right.
and
Well,
people
and
celebrate.
there is disrespect for this president and the president before him and the president before him, and in
Right.
all genres there's always a disrespect for the president, and that kind of being
The
prior
open-
military
Right.
and everything, it kind of hurts me. I mean, it doesn't matter if I support Trump, Obama, Clinton, whoever, Nixon. It doesn't matter.
Right.
As a military, I knew my commands came usually. My orders would have come from high command if I was going somewhere.
But I want
Well, and that's our oath.
It is.
We are being military, we are supposed to do what the president tells us to do.
Well, do
He's
it,
our
but only
commander-in-chief.
in the protection of the
Right.
of the Constitution and of the people.
Yes.
It was our duty
And
that
the
if it was ever
military-
an unlawful
well,
order.
and the military code of conduct.
Yes.
That's in the oath.
Yes. So I mean, we are not to follow the orders blindly, but when orders are given,
We
you
follow
follow.
those.
And
So
that's,
I want to stop just for a second. We'll jump into the chat room.
Oh, yeah,
real quick.
sorry,
I'm
sorry.
no.
We've got some great
we gotta
content.
we've got. Let's see here. Whoa. So Lexi Pyatt's here. Let's see here. It looks like Jay Pyatt is. By the way, I want a Sasquatch Oklahoma shirt in black, like the one Bruce is wearing. Great point about Donald Sutherland, and an assassination of any American president would always
Would
be
always be
horrible and detrimental. Period.
Yes.
And everyone's kind of said this and danced around it. Bruce said this toward the beginning of our chat. I think. Okay, let me back up just for a second.
back it up.
This past week, we went down to San Antonio to watch my nephew, your son, graduate from Air Force boot camp. And while we were there, we had the opportunity to go to the Alamo. And we went through the Alamo, and there is this long sort of historical, puts the Alamo in historical perspective. And there were a lot of things that took place in Mexico that led up to the Alamo. Okay? But when you look back at it, a couple hundred years in perspective, you look at, wow, that event in Mexico, not the Alamo, but the events that led to it, has shaped everything that's wrong with Mexico right now.
Right.
And I would agree that the JFK assassination is the pivot point for everything that is wrong with America right now. Regardless of what you think is right, what the perfect America is, I think our divisiveness, our distrust of authority figures, our distrust of the government, everybody likes to lay it at the feet of Watergate. I think it started here. Because when you had that many people, when this movie came out, 75% thinking there was a conspiracy, and the media telling you're wrong. No, I think that began our distrust, because this movie itself was my first real cognizant experience with media bias. I mean, you always heard about the media, this media that.
Right.
I mean, today we're sitting. I mean, all you have to do is look at Rotten Tomatoes. Not to turn this into a different kind of review, but if you look at the critics' score for Star Trek Discovery versus the audience score, It's like the Grand Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
But back then, I mean, I'm sitting here, like I said, watching a movie full of people that are giving, you know, with maybe one exception, all Oscar-worthy performances. I mean, you got John Candy giving one of his few dramatic performances that he ever gave. You've got Donald Sutherland as Mr. X. You know, you've got Joe Pesci playing a character that only Joe Pesci can play.
Oh, yeah.
You've got Tommy Lee Jones being all creepy, and Gary Oldman as Lee Harvey Oswald. Oh my God!
Is there nothing Gary Oldman cannot do?
I don't think so.
Yeah, he's got
I
a
don't
wide
think so.
range.
Yeah.
You know, but because this film didn't fit the media's perception of this real life event, essentially saying that they got it wrong,
Yeah.
the best reviews damned it with faint praise at best. I mean, one of the things I can remember them in that we've already kind of talked about, one of the things that they sort of damned Oliver Stone for was they established him for all these composite characters, you know, because Kevin Bacon's character was a composite character.
Of like four different people. Yes.
I think that they shrunk his staff, Garrison staff. They shrunk him. They shrunk them, and of course we talked about Donald Sutherland already.
Well, and also Laurie Metcalf, Jim Garrison's staff was all men. There was no females on the staff at all.
Correct. But he got criticized for giving Garrison credit for some of the stuff that Jim Mars figured out. But the point is these were all acceptable things to do in historical biopics until this movie came out.
Right.
You know, now all of a sudden it's bad. So
wasn't there something having to do with someone else was making another JFK movie and he kind of took some shortcuts,
kinda
ramping
poo-pooed
his
it, or-
out.
yeah.
He poo-pooed it. I mean,
Well, there was one with it was called Parkland,
yeah.
and it was with Tom Wellington, which was actually not a bad one.
That's a more recent one, right?
Yeah, it's a more recent one.
Well, there was one that was supposed to come out about the same time. So
Really, I've never heard about that one.
I might have to go back and check on that.
Okay.
But yeah, I
Parkland
seem to
was
remember.
also definitely one that's I think worth watching.
I've
It
not
is.
seen Parkland.
So Parkland actually tells more of the story about his basically after the assassination and everything that went on in the hospital.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
one of the most moving scene is that basically JFK's been pronounced dead, and they're going to transport him back to Washington. And
Against the law.
well,
Correct.
against the law. But the thing that is so like impactful is the fact that they get to Air Force One. They've never had to do this. There is no room for the casket on the plane, so they're having to actually remove seats. They've got tools that they're having to remove the seats and pitch them out the plane so they can actually make space for JFK.
I find it hard to believe that plane does not have storage space in the hull.
Well, that's just it.
For a
Would you
casket.
put the president in the luggage hole of the plane? That it's a little
They were already
disrespectful.
winging it.
Well,
by
okay,
that
so
point
I
that's,
anyway,
understand.
so
So,
keep
I
in mind
mean-
that's not the same Air Force One we have today.
Correct.
There's a
Okay,
different,
yeah.
a different model
okay,
plane.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So,
yeah.
I mean-
earlier version model airplanes now
Yes.
have the same kind of
Exactly.
amenities.
So, but so I mean, that to me that was a very that was something I never thought of. The fact that they've never had to transport.
Okay, so if that
a
was
president.
true, then that picture of that you see of Lyndon Johnson swearing in with Jackie standing
Standing
next
there
to him, JFK's body
body's
is
right behind him.
off view somewhere.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Wow.
That
Right.
means they've had to remove all those
Wow.
seats,
Right.
Because one, they can't put it in the storage for the luggage and everything.
Wow.
And they didn't have room on there, so literally they had to almost disassemble that. They had to gut the plane to make room for it.
I'm gonna find
And then
the movie and watch
also, they not only did that, they had no way of bringing the casket up into the plane. So literally, they show a scene where 4, 5, 6 people are trying to manhandle it up the stairwell
Wow.
to take it in the plane. I don't know how factual that was,
Right.
but to me, that was like, oh my
Man.
God, that's something that I had never even comprehended. But as a Secret Service agent, I was military cop, and I've had a few assignments where basically it came down to my job and protection of some high personnel, and thinking about that, I was like, in retrospect, I was like, wow, yeah, if that had ever happened, what was our contingency plan? I mean,
Wow.
you know,
Well, had that person been killed, you were no longer needed.
Wow, this guy.
Wow, gallows humor.
I was like, well, he's dead now. I said, guys.
We just
I need a
can't-
drink.
We just can't help the fact that fun is our brand, can we?
Sorry.
No, it's okay because
No one died over my watch, though.
That's
I
right,
can tell you that
that's
right now.
Because Buddy's thorough,
that's right.
and Buddy will get you.
He will get you. So let's talk about the various theories that are postulated in the film. We've been running some clips here.
Yep.
You know, we have we have the I want to destroy the two what I consider to be straw man arguments, which is that Castro did it or the Soviet Union did it.
Oh, yeah.
That's easily dismissible because it was in both those guys' interest to keep Kennedy alive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was their
Right.
biggest advocate for sharing power and for keeping for
Right.
ramping things down. The mob was the next one that always seems to come up, which is believable because didn't Big Joe make a lot of his money sort of?
Yeah,
And-
he did. He was in deep with the mob,
Right, and they could look at it as, well,
And
hey,
it
look-
was the mob and the Teamsters that helped
get him elected.
Get him elected.
Yeah,
So-
they bought the Illinois primary for him.
They did,
I believe.
Yeah.
Or
so
That is what it says.
that theory is out.
But on the other hand though, I would believe it in the respect that they thought, hey, we got Joe's son in there now.
Yeah.
He'll give us. And what happens?
Well,
the first thing happened, Bobby Kennedy
Bobby
goes
Kennedy's
right
go
after
after,
him.
yeah.
So
Going
yeah,
after racketeering. And
yeah. So I
and
think
all
that I mean
so.
that does hold some water. However, when it's put in historical context, I do tend to fall on the fact that I don't doubt the mob's involvement. Okay, like Garrison did, but at a lower level. I do really believe that it was the military-industrial complex. I just have a hard time believing if you add up all the negatives,
There's
the
no
thing-
way
and
the
the reason-
mob. There's
well,
no way the mob had that much
in-
influence to make certain changes or
That's true.
get information about the president's proceedings.
Well, could the mob change the parade route?
No.
That was brought up.
No.
in
Well,
the
that
part
was
of
part
the
of the movie
movie.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
So it's like what Donald Sutherland says. Mr. X says, follow the money. Who benefited?
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Military-industrial
Well, I
complex.
mean, at the end of it, even tells you how many helicopters we lost, how many men we lost.
Yeah.
I mean, how many property and material that was lost during that war and everything. One scene though in JFK though that is a little misleading is that JFK is seen showing, you get me the presidency, I'll give you your damn war.
No, it's LBJ.
LBJ, I'm sorry, LBJ. Yes,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say we have no proof
Look,
that ever took place. Yeah.
Well, actually, I was doing research, and actually, he is
Yeah.
known for saying that.
Yeah.
But
get me elected, and I'll give you your damn war.
But it wasn't until after he was assassinated that he actually was known to make that statement. It's actually what I read.
The re-election when he
Correct.
yeah.
He said that like on November 26th.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
After that, so
Okay.
he was talking about his re-election.
Gotcha.
And I'll get you that.
Well,
one.
okay, so in the movie, it shows him signing that new executive order,
Yes.
which ramps up the troop deployment into Vietnam.
Yes. National
which
Security
can-
Action Memo 276.
Right, which
yeah.
counteracts Kennedy's
When you get it, no, go ahead and finish.
which
That's okay.
counteracts Kennedy's order
Reverse
to
his
bring
policy,
back.
basically.
Right.
Reversed it. He was going to bring back 1,000 military advisors by Christmas of that
Christmas,
year.
Yes.
And by
And this was November.
spring
So, yeah, yeah.
of the '64, there was going to be no American involvement in Vietnam whatsoever.
Right.
Right.
So when LBJ did what he did,
Yep.
I mean, he damned us to involvement in it.
Right.
And then you have the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which is what they call a red flag.
Yeah. I mean, it basically
Go into that a
precipitated
little bit more.
Vietnam
I don't
War.
think anyone.
Yeah.
Ba-
Well, so,
okay, so,
please
so,
elaborate
ba-
on the
okay,
Gulf.
so
Yeah.
basically, there's been throughout history, and I hate to say this, in the United States, different times that things have been staged to look like an attack on us, on U.S. interest, on U.S. warships, so that we can justify going to war. And I know there's probably going to be some people that aren't going to like what I say and don't agree with it, and I'll probably get some kind of heat from it. But I've done the research, I've done the reading. My wife can attest to that. I mean, the books,
she's
the books
she's
that I have at
begrudgingly
my
nodding.
house, the everything that I've done.
Yeah.
I'm darn near like that guy that has the wall with the threads going all over the place. I mean, I have been that guy.
Do you have a
before.
foil hat? You have a foil hat?
Well, actually, come to find out, aluminum foil doesn't really do anything.
Okay. Thank you for informing us of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, the Gulf of Tonkin was a staged incident. I'm kind of fuzzy on the details. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's why we do. We have all deniability.
Right.
This
Right.
whole-
Yeah.
with
I'm
all
kinda fuzzy on the
deniability.
details,
However,
he was
but-
drunk. He don't know.
I
North Vietnam could not have pulled off that attack the way it happened, but it did. You can go back and there was a battleship during the Spanish-American War. There was a battleship that was attacked. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the battleship right now.
Okay.
But that preceded our involvement in the Spanish-American War, and it's. I'm not gonna say it about 9/11, but
Okay.
there's just some things that seem a little too convenient to have happened.
Well,
that we're ready to jump on and start dropping bombs on people.
Let's check the message board
oh
real
yeah.
quick.
Let's see here. Jay Pye says on any Air Force One plane. I'm thinking maybe he's referring to our comment about the
Yes.
captain.
Yep.
JFK was trying to share information with Russia about aliens visiting our planet that was trying to be covered up. I hadn't heard that.
I had not.
I had not heard that. I don't know if that's true.
What
or
are you
not.
drinking, Jay? No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
no, seriously.
I have not heard that one.
I'm just
Did
gonna
we have
say
anything?
I'm just gonna say about that comment that nothing would surprise me at this point.
Well, okay, we do know he was willing to call off the moon race in favor of détente with the Russians.
Right.
He was willing to-
cooperation
Wanted to
of a
do it-
joint
they wanted to
mission.
go together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, was that what it was?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have your hand up? Do we have a con?
I did.
Okay.
So Courtney pointed out we are kind of going back to the mob
That's okay then.
and not being able to pull off things like that. But she pointed out that at that time the mob was more like a palpable state in the Renaissance. They had people placed everywhere in places of power.
Jack Ruby.
So while they might not have been the ones pulling the strings, they
Oh yeah, I don't doubt.
One thing about the
in my
mob
opinion, they
is
could have
that
had
at
their
that
finger
time,
in everything,
Yeah.
pushing
Oh, yeah.
things
And-
in certain directions.
one thing about the mob is at that time the Central Intelligence Agency was using a mob for clandestine operations on
yeah.
U.S. soil.
Yeah, they were
They
they
could
were
not,
pawns
by
and
law,
knights and
do
rooks
it.
and stuff
Right,
like that.
But the mob fit perfectly for what they
They-
needed to get done.
They were the perfect dark op
Yeah.
program that if the military didn't want to be involved or associated, they could be used. So yeah.
Well,
so.
because so let's Jack Ruby owned the Carousel Club, which is where all the cops and everybody hung out. But he was a bag man for the mob, so could very easily say, "Hey, Mayor, you don't want your wife seeing those pictures we took last week. Why don't you change that parade route?" I mean, I could see people doing that, or I just can't imagine anyone besides the CIA or the
The mayor
military
wouldn't be able to change that.
pulling
This is-
off allowing the bubble top to be removed.
No,
all the things that Mr. X
that
runs
is
There are
all
too
Secret
many-
Service.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that is too
But
high of a level that.
the level of organization, the mob could have pulled off a lot of the small pieces.
Yeah.
Well, like
Yes. And they
so
may
in the
have.
movie, like in the
The
movie,
mob
they
could have made
showed,
sure that the rifles that the shooters used were going to be stashed
Yeah,
where the shooters were going
exactly.
to be.
or
That's
even
what the mob could have done.
so in the movie, before everything's changed, there is a man who is known to have a seizure on the street.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
distraction. That's easily someone that could be
Yeah.
identified as the mob and stuff. So,
Right.
and again, this is all
Pure-
speculation.
Well, what's
there
speculation?
is
But
there
what's
is
not speculation
nothing.
is that if at some point if you haven't seen the movie again, shame on you. At some point, Garrison feels it's in his best interest to get an arrest warrant out for Clay Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
They arrest him, and they take him to trial, and they present in my opinion, a damning case for a conspiracy.
Right.
What they are not so successful in doing is proving that Clay Shaw was a part of it,
Right.
because mainly all their witnesses are dead at this point.
Right,
and
right.
and what I thought was really
Well,
interesting.
at some point, the judge disallows some evidence.
Right. They disallow the biggest piece of evidence they
Right.
had at that time, because here's the thing. The character that Joe Pesci plays, David Ferry, Garrison even says this in the book. He said, if I made one mistake, it was not protecting him full time. He said, that's the biggest mistake I ever made. It's like, well, now, nice to look back on it. Well, he said
Hindsight's always 20/20.
Right. The two biggest, he said the second biggest mistake I made was firing Lou Ivan.
Oh,
You know, the guy that basically tried to tell him, dude, you got a mole in here.
and he's like, I will not have ultimatums put to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he said,
Yeah.
but he
I'll
said,
accept your
I
resignation.
went into military testosterone mode.
Right, and if you haven't seen the movie, Jim Garrison was a
Army officer?
No, he's a bomber pilot.
Bomber-
He
was a bomber-
He's either
he was a
bombardier or pilot.
but he was like in the reserves
Right.
and stuff. He was still
Right.
serving
National Guard. They
National
asked
Guard.
him
something
to,
like that.
and they asked him to. They asked him to resign after when
Yes.
they brought the case in.
Yes.
because they were embarrassed of him.
Joni Murray just joined us.
Yeah,
So
Joni
that's us.
Murray.
Hey,
And
Joni.
Hey!
Yep.
Whoop whoop.
Welcome to the live chat. Probably one of the darkest topics we've
Oh, I
got
know,
tonight.
Or Jay just
What's
said,
the reason behind the conspiracy?
or why is the reason behind or the why? Yes, okay. So I see what you say. So basically, it's not like Donald Sutherland says in the movie. It's not who shot from what rooftop. It's why he was killed.
Right.
And that was essentially to allow the military-industrial complex to move forth with what it saw was it's essentially putting a small group of people in power.
Right.
And with the illusion that that we the people still have the say that we have. And I think it's funny. I want to kind of backtrack here a minute. I don't care whether it's Clinton, Obama, Trump, whoever it is you're supporting. I think there's, if you watch this film with a certain lens, you get the idea that because of all, we're still talking about this assassination 56 years later.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't see it dying anytime
I don't
soon.
either.
I'm sorry.
I think that at
was
the
a little
time,
maybe.
the CIA thought that they could get away with anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, hell, they did.
Well,
They killed the
that's what
president.
they had.
And they killed the president. I mean, they killed the president and got away with it in the respect that day they got what they wanted. Assuming you buy into the movie's thesis.
I was about to say, I was like,
I do have a couple other sources I want to add to that. But go ahead.
Okay. But I think that maybe if you buy into that thesis, you can look at things going on now and think, okay, they've gotten a little smarter in the fact, okay, we can't kill a president, but what can we do to make him impotent? Whether it's Clinton, Obama, Bush, whoever, there's things they can do. Trump, there's things they can do that don't necessarily constitute an assassination, but you can still render a president powerless.
You
so,
can.
I mean, again,
And it
that's
goes to
if you
any president.
subscribe to the movie's thesis.
There's so many. I know you're.
Well, no, I was just going to add to
Yeah, go ahead.
Through some other research that I had done, I had found out that the CIA actually had a kill team that's what they specialized in, was eliminating political
Absolutely,
figures in like third world countries.
Oh yeah.
So people in Bolivia,
Oh, yeah.
Venezuela, anywhere in South America, Iran, they had a setup very similar to this where they used the triangulation crossfire.
Well, that's what
method.
X says. All they did was bring the laws.
That's right. Well, that is 100%.
How interesting
true.
is it that Gerald Ford outlawed that? He's like,
Yeah.
no way. You were going to say something.
You suckers ain't gonna get me
That's
that
right.
way.
What you said there was pretty much it was a great point. So no, I don't have anything else to add to that and everything.
So we go to the trial, which we talked about, and of course in the trial, as he is unable to prove that Clay Shaw is a conspirator.
Right.
And something that they touch on briefly, like if you blink in the movie, you miss it. But they interviewed people in New Orleans after the fact, and every one of them said he convinced us beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was a conspiracy, but he just couldn't convince us that Clay Shaw was part of it.
Right.
So with that being said, I want to talk about the film's lasting legacy. I mean,
The film or the event?
both. I mean, I think. Okay. So the assassination occurred in '63.
Right.
Oliver Stone made this movie in '91.
Right.
Okay. And now here we are in 2019.
We're still
talking about an event that happened 56 years ago that was dramatized more than 20 years ago.
Well, so if you don't mind, I'd like to take the first run at that and stuff. This event is so prolific in its sense that it has been used time and time again to tell stories of different variations. I mean, it has been the source of movies. It's been the source of TV. It's been the source of books. It's been the source of comic books.
Where you see the authors of these stories drawing from the Kennedy Award.
I mean, like, I can't remember, but there was the Hulu series that was based on the Stephen King.
11/22/63.
So it was 11/22/63.
Excellent series,
good
by
job.
the way.
Stephen King, basically,
Read that
told
book,
the story.
dang good book.
Yeah, so I mean, it was still pulling that information. Some of the earlier works were back in the 80s when they tried to reboot the Twilight Zone. There was an episode where there was a professor who was a Kennedy extremist, and he found a way to time travel and go back and replace Kennedy and traded places with them. Kennedy went forward in the future and became the professor. There was also another, I can't remember, Quantum Leap. There was a theory that JFK was never the actual target. They were trying to kill his wife, Jackie.
Really? Okay.
Yes. And so to basically force his hand into a war. Trying to basically force him into going after Castro full on. Because they wanted the Cuban crisis missile to occur.
Yeah.
They wanted nuclear war. They wanted to eliminate
if you remember, Season 1 of Babylon 5, when President Santiago is assassinated, when they cut to the vice president assuming the oath, it is an exact staged picture of that photograph of Lyndon Johnson taking the oath of office. I mean, even the lady standing next to him is wearing a pink dress.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I mean, to even go into the comic books, there is a comic, and I think it's I want to say it's a Batman issue where they actually they pull JFK out because he is needed to actually lead an alien force on another planet. I mean, that's how deep it went.
Yeah,
Is like
yeah.
there were so many different stories that people wanted to tell because
there's a lot of things that don't add up about, and I think that's why this won't go away, as the tagline said in the trailer. Is there's so many things, and I think it's really funny that the only people that don't believe it was a conspiracy are the media and history professors.
Right.
You know?
Well, to go back to Buddy's,
Yeah.
you know, the influence in the comic books. I mean, if we can't have truth, justice, and American way in reality, then we're gonna have it in our comic books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you damn right we are.
Well, and even in the
That's an
movie,
excellent point.
it states at the end that basically we would not have access to these files until 2029, I
Yeah.
believe it is.
Yeah.
Now that is not.
And we're
accurate
going to be
because-
old men by
Well,
then.
Well, that's-
some have been released.
They've
in
actually released
2017.
Yeah,
believe,
it was 2 or 3, maybe no more than
Not
5
a
years
whole-
ago.
Not a whole
Not
lot
everything's been
extra.
released,
Well,
but
right, and not a whole lot new had really been revealed. In what had been
there has
released
been
yet.
more things
Right.
released, but there has been an extension on that because they feel that there is still
Yeah.
repercussions
Yeah.
of existing family members associated to that.
Well,
that
right.
it was
Yeah,
still
I-
received.
I think the Johnsons
Yeah.
Yeah.
are probably going to have a.
Well, Courtney commented on here that this represented the end of America's age of innocence.
It
It
was.
did. It did.
Oh, straight up. I
And-
agree 100.
And Jay Pyatt kind of commented on this 1963 event will live infinitely because of what happened to our great nation during such a critical time of the development and enlightenment. I agree with that. So, I just think that if there's so many things that the reason the story won't die, hell, it's become a generational affair
Right.
at this point, as he says in the movie. So, my personal thought is, I don't know. Even if all the files were released today, I don't know that we'd ever find a smoking gun. I just don't. There's been too many files
No.
destroyed. That just Kennedy's brain was
Right.
was
Disappeared.
lost.
Well, not even that. Also, think about the number of material items that were introduced into evidence that they found out to be fraudulent
Right.
now.
The
So,
bullet.
the bullet,
The magic bullet.
the pristine
The
bullet,
magic bullet.
the magic bullet. So I even
It's
read it.
infuriating.
So
I know.
in the movie, they're talking about the magic bullet that did all this damage and came out pristine. Well, they've actually found out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they actually found out that this particular bullet that was introduced into evidence was actually not the bullet that was found. It was just
Shocking.
Oh, I know. So I mean, so much material, so much mishandling, so much.
Well, and look at the number of eyewitnesses that are now dead, that died like within a couple of years. Like
Right.
the one that gets me is the railroad guy.
The railroad guy, yeah,
That's the
yeah.
one that keeps. I mean, the
He's
roast.
he's the one that could place people at the
Yes,
exact
yeah.
spots where
Yeah.
shots would have to
Yeah.
be fired to accomplish
Right.
the murder.
So
and yeah, he ended up dying a horrible, tragic car death.
So I think
Car crash.
we're trying to do our best to kind of keep this to a reasonable time tonight. So we're going to start
I
wrapping
think
up.
we've been doing.
Which I think we've been doing great. I
So-
want to wrap up by saying if you like what we're saying and
Yes.
there's any part of it that you doubt or have questions on, watch JFK the film.
Yeah.
You can. I don't know if it's available. It's probably you probably have to buy the books at Amazon, or if you want to listen to them on Audible. On the Trail of the Assassins is an excellent book. It reads like a thriller. I mean, it reads just like the book, like the movie does. Crossfire, the
Plot to Kill Kennedy.
That's your favorite. It's a bit drier. It's a bit drier.
In fact,
but-
I got that book at Walden Books.
Oh, wow.
Walden
Is it a
Books.
real book
After,
with pages?
after
Yeah,
I
it's
saw
a
the
real
movie,
book with pages.
Only. Did she just really make fun of me? Because
No, she's just making fun of our age. Yeah, that's
Okay.
all right.
It's like
She's-
a
What's the reverse of
generation
okay?
now.
But what is the reverse of okay boomer? I
Freaking
Anyway,
millennials.
because I saw that book was referenced in the movie, I went and bought that book, and yeah, that's Yeah.
It's more of it has more of a textbook feel. It doesn't read as it's not the page turner to me that Crossfire.
no,
is.
it's
an excellent book.
Yeah, it's not. It's technical.
The pictures in it
technical.
alone,
yes,
though, because
the
that's
pictures
something
tell
right before we close
everything.
out. The we talked about the cast. Everybody in this movie, except for Kevin Costner, was basically cast to type.
Oh, yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones looks like freaking Clay Shaw.
Yeah.
Joe Pesci looks like
David Ferry.
Yeah.
John Candy looks like Dean Andrews. I
Yeah.
mean, it's scary how much all
what
these.
about
Oh, and Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman
looks just.
Gary,
like,
I mean, yeah.
oh my
wow,
God, we didn't
it's
talk
just-
enough about that. We don't have
Yeah.
another hour.
Okay. Now, everything we talked about was very important, but I just want to bring up Kevin Bacon.
I was
Okay.
gonna say
Okay.
that's where I was going. With Kevin
Yeah.
Bacon.
How important was this movie in the game of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? This connects him to everybody
Yeah.
in Hollywood.
Thanks to this
I-
movie, you can connect Kevin Bacon to John Wayne.
Yes, yes, you can.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
All right, well, hang on. You're going to do it, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" All right, so do it.
Well, actually, I don't even need this movie now that I think about it.
Well,
So you've got
Six-
John Wayne,
Uh-huh.
who was in The Shooters with Ron Howard,
Yeah.
who directed Kevin Bacon in Apollo
Apollo
13.
13.
So I didn't even need JFK to do
Okay,
it.
so there you go. All right, so so I think that's definitely a good spot to wrap it
Yeah.
up. So again, if you like what you're hearing, you like what you see, you like follow us on our Twitch, our YouTube, our
You guys are
Facebook,
great.
our
Fantastic
Instagram.
movie.
Uh,
Go back.
we got a few
okay,
things.
fine. We got a few comments here. Okay, you guys are great. Friend, thank you, Jay. I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight.
Oh yeah,
So-
thanks, Eli,
Well,
Katie,
Yeah.
I gotta say thank
Courtney.
you to Courtney.
Courtney.
Yes.
Because she was our one and only person on our first
Instagram.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Thank you,
Courtney.
Well, and especially since
Happy birthday, by the way.
this is not a fun topic. I mean,
It
this,
is
this
not.
is this is an important topic, but it's not a fun topic.
Well, I disagree. It is an important topic. It's a fun topic in a sense that it's something that is stimulating to talk about. That
Right.
is always fun.
And it is
right?
an excellent film. Even
It
if you
is.
think the whole thing is bogus,
Yep.
the filmmaking craft on display, I mean, just the editing alone, which they won an Oscar for, by the way, is worth the watch.
We got one more comment over here.
Interesting little note on our Instagram live. They're gonna limit you guys to 1 hour. We have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, well there you go.
Well, there we go.
All right, so again, like I said, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, follow us, like us, share us.
Mash that bell on YouTube so you get
Exactly.
notifications when the video
Exactly.
comes out, so.
And again, we thank you guys for tuning in tonight, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Bruce, for
Thank you,
coming.
guys.
And thanks for Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
We
Thanks
need
for
to
the
definitely
invite.
have him more often.
That's right. See you guys next time. Peace.